Hey, Attorney Tash. Thank you so much for
Hi.
being on Lessons Learned.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so glad to be here.
I know, and I'm so happy that you're on this special episode edition of Black History Month.
Right.
So, can you tell us what you do?
Absolutely. So, I am an attorney. I went to Western New England University School of Law in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Ooh.
I started my career as a public defender. I was a public defender for about 3 years, including my time as an intern. And then after that, I was an attorney for a city, which is basically being in house counsel to a government. And I was there for 3 years. And then I left the city of Holyoke. I worked with youth, helping to dismantle the school to prison pipeline. I did that for a few months. And currently, I have my own law practice and I help families prepare for the future through estate planning. So I saw a need, especially in the Black community, of Black people not putting their final wishes into writing. And I really wanted to address that need. And so I started doing estate planning, and I've been doing estate planning for the last year or so.
Wow, that's amazing. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Well, do you think there's a stigma as a Black woman working in the law system?
Stigma. I used to. I used to. When I first started, I definitely did. Um, Especially with my background. I don't come from a lot of means. I don't have a Cinderella story per se. Like my mom worked, my dad worked, typical middle class Black family. But I'm also the first attorney in my family. So I didn't have access to a lot of the information that someone should know when they're pursuing a career as an attorney. And I had to learn a lot of things by trial and error. Um, as far as the stigma in the legal profession, well, less than 5% of the legal profession is Black. And then I want to say less than 2% of the legal profession are Black women.
Ooh.
Um, the last time I looked at the numbers. So we're not represented. We're not represented at all. And I definitely want to help increase our numbers as attorneys. It's a really amazing profession. It's a very fulfilling profession, and I would encourage anyone who is interested in, like, even if you think you want to be a lawyer, I encourage anyone to at least go seek out the information about how you can become a lawyer. Um, as far as stigmas, a lot of Black women have been questioned about what are you doing here, like as in like when they enter the courtroom. A lot of times people will think you are supposed to be like, I'm trying to be politically correct, but I'll just say like, people will think that like you're the girlfriend. So I used to do criminal law,
Mm.
and people will think that like you're a girlfriend or baby mama of a defendant, and they'll be like, that section's for lawyers, and you're like, I am a lawyer.
Oh my goodness.
um the court, it takes a little while for people in the courthouse as a whole to like know who you are, and know your face. One of the advantages for me for the courthouse that I worked in was I was there as a student attorney. So I had already gotten, by the time I had became an attorney, I had already spent a year kind of getting to know the court officers, and like staff and such. So they kind of knew who I was. And then also in Western Massachusetts. So the attorneys in Western Massachusetts is a very, very small group of people. There are 9 law schools in the state of Massachusetts. 8 of them are in Eastern Mass. So in Western Mass, like all of us, well, I'm not gonna say all of us, that's me touting my school, but I would say like 80% of us are graduates of Western New England. So my experience, I found people who kind of wanted to mentor me and take me under their wing, which I thought was really awesome. Other stigmas, I would say the most painful stigmas about being a Black woman attorney came from clients. So a lot of them kind of just being like, they're not going to listen to you because you're a Black woman. And it's like, what do you do in that scenario? Because it's like, I have to do what's in the best interest of my client as a
What do you
lawyer.
do?
You know, it puts you in a really tough situation because it's like, I have to do what's in the best interest of my client, but at the same time, like I'm still a lawyer. You know what I mean? Like, I'm at the end of the day, I'm a lawyer. Like, you know, whether you respect me, sir, or you don't respect, like, I'm a lawyer. And I'm not even going to like pretend like what they're saying is not true, because there's a concept in litigation called impact litigation, where attorneys will do things strategically to get certain results. One of those things might be, we know that the best attorney in our office might be a Black woman or something. But let's say we're handling a case in the backwoods of Alabama. We know that the jurors in the backwoods of Alabama might respect a white man more. So it might be in the best interest of our client if that Black woman takes a step back and the white man kind of takes the lead. You know, it's really hard. I don't know if I don't work in the backwoods of Alabama, so I'm just using that as an example.
But still, like, I can only imagine. That's crazy.
Right, but it's one of those things that you really have to think about. Like, you have to be really strategic, because, I mean, there's no rhyme or reason a lot of times when it comes to law and when it comes to politics and things like that. But you have to be really strategic. Like, I will never forget, one of my friends who works for GLAD now was explaining to me the case of Loving, which is the case that made interracial marriage legal. And he was telling me that the reason why they picked the couple that they picked is because it was a white man and a Black woman. And it's really hard for judicial system to deny the rights of a white man. Just like when it comes to, I mean, I could go on and on about this all day.
I'm really interested. I'm just
about to go on and on all day. Because even, okay, when we look at like Plessy versus Ferguson, right? That case, that was the case. Brown versus Board of Education overturned Plessy versus Ferguson. Right. But I didn't know that strategically they set up Plessy versus Ferguson. They set that case up to lose so they could come back with Brown versus Board of Education. Like, I didn't know that until like I became a lawyer and I'm learning about these things, and like how the person in Plessy, they intentionally picked a lighter skinned man, you know. So it's like, it's all those different things. Like Justice Thurgood Marshall, he's my favorite legal scholar in like the whole wide world. And well, next to Geraldine Hines. Geraldine Hines is my number one. I love her. She's my Beyonce. She's the first. I love her dearly. But after her, Thurgood Marshall. But I didn't know how much went into their strategic litigation. And it's like, it's those things you got to think about, like the complexion, like Like, what does the lawyer look like? What does our ideal client look like? When you're trying to do impact litigation, just taking all those things into consideration. I hope that in 2021, we don't still have to move that way as legal professionals, but I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, from the looks of it, you don't know.
Right.
It seems like we're not really moving, but wow, that's crazy. Now that you said that just makes much more sense.
Right.
And I wonder how many people didn't know that, you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, but why would people know? Like, if it's not something that is like of interest to you, or and especially like, when you're telling a story, like, we don't know all the other details about, let's say, Brown versus Board of Education, like the school, like they were so strategic, like down to like what school we're going to pick, which kids we're going to get, which kids we're going to put on the stand. Like litigation is very, very, very strategic, and it looks so cool, like when lawyers are in the courtroom and they're doing their thing, but it's like it's just like putting on a movie. We see a movie, the movie lasts 2 hours, but it took 2 years to put this 2-hour movie together. It's so much that goes into it, and we just see this work of art in the end. And the way that they're doing it looks so smooth and it looks so cool, but it's a lot of work and a lot of strategy that goes into it.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's really crazy. I'm just like, when you were explaining, I'm like, keep talking more.
Oh, right. No,
yeah.
It's hard because it's like, so another thing, like we were talking about stigma, is like, another thing I would get from a lot of my clients is they would just be like, oh, I'm going to go hire a Jewish lawyer. And we know that like the stereotype in these rappers and their songs, like I'm keeping a playlist of like every rap song I hear where they're like, oh, I'm gonna go get me a Jewish lawyer, right? And it's interesting because it's like, when we see Black women, doctors, lawyers, accountants, whatever, professional degrees, right, on Instagram, and we want to scream Black girl magic and things like that. But then when it comes down to hiring us, it's like, we're not just fighting, in corporate America, or fighting to be recognized by white men. We're literally fighting to be recognized by Black people as a whole.
Exactly.
There's a lot of stigmas when it comes to hiring Black professionals. I know, we've heard the white man's ice is colder, or, insert Black people always late, Black people don't know how to run businesses, whatever. Insert whatever stereotype you want to insert here. But at the end of the day, if you genuinely feel like that in your heart, don't scream Black girl magic.
Don't.
When you see like a Black woman who has like gotten her degrees and she's a doctor and different things like that, like keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself. I know that we should be promoting and things like that, and it kind of sounds like an oxymoron, but it's like, I genuinely feel like we're setting people up for failure like that. Yeah, I genuinely
could agree.
When you're right, like when we're saying like, oh, you all should go and become lawyers and doctors and different things like that, but then when it comes down to hiring us, it's like, you don't want to hire us.
And that's so funny that you
celebrate me.
Right. And that's so funny that you said that, because I just interviewed someone, and she's a trainer, and she's African American, she's Black. And she was explaining to me how the reason why there's not a lot of Black trainers in the field is because they fight against each other. It's a competition between another Black person. So like the way that you're saying that, it just makes sense to everything. It's like, why are we going to look down on our own kind when we need to lift each other up? You know what I mean? And then we have other races looking at us sideways too. It's just, it's crazy how everything is connecting,
It is. And it's like, it makes it hard to win.
Hard.
But that's why I promote like self-employment. I do. Like, we can have jobs. I think it's important to, have jobs, have that security, but it's also important to be in charge of your own finances. And one of the ways you do that is by having a business.
Yep.
When you are a Black woman, it's not like a choice. It's a necessity. And that's nothing new, because I think, growing up, or just in general, like generations before us, it's like how many mothers were like selling plates out of their house, or
right,
just having side hustles, like they were the neighborhood hairdresser. Like, Black women have always had side hustles outside of our houses. I think it's just such a great time right now. We're legitimizing those side hustles. We're getting LLCs. We love LLC Twitter and all that stuff. People are promoting like getting legit, and I appreciate it. I'm happy people are getting legit.
Yes. I do have a question. Do you think, as a single Black woman, do you think it's harder than, like any other race, as a single parent, or just a single, like someone that's single?
Yeah, absolutely. I know we were just talking about this, the single Black woman tax. That is what the term that I have coined.
Tell us about
absolutely.
that, because that's I need to know, because we're both single and we're like, hello, if it's going to be expensive, then come on now.
Well, I mean, I don't have children, so I can't speak to what it's like being like a single Black mom. But what I will say is, when you are a single Black woman, like, we don't see a lot of our money. Women get paid, I'm forgetting the numbers right now, but like, women are paid, what is it, 82 cents on the dollar, and then Black women are paid even less than that. I can't remember the number right now, so it's like, okay, we're already taking less money home as a Black woman, right? Then you add taxes. So as a single person, single people pay more in taxes than married people. And I know people, they're going to say, well, no, I had to pay this, I had to pay that, whatever. Debate your mama. Single people, the government hates, okay? The government hates single people and people who don't own property. The way that laws are written, this is what I learned in law school. America hates the middle class. That's what America hates the middle class, okay?
Look at it.
I know. America loves the rich. America tolerates the poor. And especially us, as we live in Massachusetts, we have access to so many more resources than other states. And I'm super grateful for that. But especially places like Massachusetts, they hate the middle class. It's so hard to get ahead. So like I was saying, single people pay more in taxes, right? When it comes to, let's say you're ready to buy a home, right? And a bank is looking at your application. If you're able to apply with a spouse, like, there's a greater chance, because there's power in numbers, right? So it's harder to buy a house already because you're doing it by yourself, right? And then it comes down to other things you're buying. Even when it comes down to groceries, like, I'm buying groceries by myself, so they're going spoiled and things like that. So I'm throwing more stuff away. I used to have this joke like years ago about, like, someone should invent a bag of apples for single people. It's like, it's like you can only buy a 3 or 5 pound bag of apples, right?
You can't buy
it's
too
like,
many.
Right. And I'm not going to buy one apple because what are they, like 50 cents a pop? That's not financially sound.
Sometimes they're more. I bought one apple and it was almost $2. I'm not even joking.
Right, exactly. Or you can get the 3-pound bag and that's like $4 or $5. You know what I mean? So, and then, you know, you have it and it goes spoiled. So it's like when you're single, you're spending more money on food. You're spending more money on car insurance, you know, because you don't have someone to add it with. Another example, when I decided to go out on my own to start my own law practice, and I asked a lot of my colleagues, like, hey, you know, what are you doing about health insurance? And they would be like, oh, I'm just jumping on my spouse's health insurance. When you're single, you don't have that option, you know, to just jump on your spouse's health insurance. So that's like another thing to overcome. So, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, definitely like got discouraged, but I'm just like, no, I got to do what I got to do. Even just like, you know, like I said, getting started, like when you don't have a spouse to like help you or like basically take care of your basic needs, like a spouse to like basically take care of your rent or the mortgage or, you know, just your basic day-to-day things. And then the money that's coming in from starting your business, you can't just stack that up. Like I heard one of my colleagues, she was like celebrating herself. She's like, oh, I didn't take any money out of my business for the first year. And it's like, that's awesome. You know, I'm really glad to hear that. But then at the same time, like you have a spouse,
right, to help you out,
full-time job. You know what I mean? So it's harder, but it's not impossible. I will not say that. It's not impossible. And I definitely don't want to make it seem like I'm like, oh, woe is me. Definitely not doing that by any stretch of the imagination. But I just want, like, we need to like talk about this and figure it out. Like a few years ago, I was like,
it's definitely something to look at because
absolutely,
you know?
We're already bringing less money to the table. And now we have to stretch this money. Like we're bringing less money in and we have more money going out because we're single Black women. And it's like, how are we ever going to be able to attack the wealth gap?
I guess you have to get married.
I know, and I definitely do want to get married, but you know, we'll see what happens. We'll see. That's a whole nother
thing we gotta talk about.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah. About marriage in the Black community and things like that. Yes. Our marriage rates being lower, but I'm gonna save that for another podcast. All right, so that's the single Black woman tax. We got less coming in and more going out.
So what are some laws that everyone should know automatically?
Oh,
like
God,
if you can think about like right off the bat.
Right.
I know there's a lot.
I know, right? Wow. I mean, basically whatever is going to affect your day-to-day life. So I used to work for a city. I was in-house counsel to a government, and that was the best job I've ever had in my entire life. Like I learned so much in those 3 years.
Wow.
And when elections come up and a lot of people will say, you know, you need to pay attention to your local elections more than the national elections. That is so true.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. Because when it comes down to your day-to-day life, the inconveniences of your life, different things like that, like you can't call Biden and be like, they haven't picked up my trash in 2 weeks. What should I do about it? Like, I remember when there was a woman, it was in New York, and they weren't picking up her trash for like, I think it was like months and months and months. And like, they were like harassing her and different things like that. right? Like, who's in charge of that?
Right.
Your mayor, your city councilors. You complain to those people. The mayor appoints the person who's in charge of DPW or the equivalent wherever you are. The mayor appoints that person. The mayor also appoints the police chief. Like, and I know a lot of times people will be like, well, they're all politicians, they're all going to do whatever they want to do anyway, which is true to an extent. But working for a government, I learned that if you complain to your local government, they will listen to you. Like, I was blessed enough to work for a mayor that genuinely cared about the constituents of the city that he worked for. And when our constituents would email him, he would forward it to us. What can we do about this? How can we figure this out? How can we solve this? Living maybe in a bigger city, you may not get that quick turnaround like that. But there are power in numbers. And another thing that I have learned, not just working for the government, but just being an attorney in general, is that politicians care about their popularity the way people in high school care about their popularity. Okay.
I could see
it's
that.
Like now that we have social media and stuff, so it's like if you're getting dragged, no politician wants to be dragged on social media. They don't. No politician wants to be canceled on social media. Okay. So if people are saying like, oh, this is what's happening, I told my my city councilor, or I told my state rep, or I told my congressperson, and they didn't do anything about it. Like, and in this day and age, like, we have Twitter. All you need is that retweet by somebody who like has a huge following. And you're done. You're done. You're canceled. So a lot of times it's like you just need to get in that politician's ear. Like, people will talk about like, oh, protesting doesn't work and things like that. Protesting works.
Right.
Protesting works. I can promise you it works.
I don't understand why people think it doesn't work. It works.
Right. I mean, a lot of times I can see why it doesn't work. Because like when George Floyd was murdered, I remember in having I was having a conversation. I'm in like a Black women's law group where it's like, this is a support group. I said, I'm not marching. I'm done marching. I'm not marching anymore. And I used to be one of those people who used to be in like every single protest when I was in law school and in college. I was always marching. I was like, I'm not marching. This is dumb. I ended up marching. I did. I ended up marching. I mean, the city that I worked for, like an organization had ended up connecting with the city, and they did a march. The mayor marched. I marched with the police chief, and we talked about, kind of what was going on, and we talked about our own struggles in our city, because one of my jobs as a city attorney was to defend the city in lawsuits like that, like when the police kill people. Thank God we didn't have any murders in my city. But they're called civil rights lawsuits. And we had them. Every city has them. No city is immune. And we kind of talked about that. And it was really nice to be able to march with the chief of police and us. And as I said, the mayor was there too, and a few city councilors, and us just saying like, no, we're not going to tolerate stuff like that in our city. Like, no.
Wow. And you guys were able to be vulnerable and support the policemen. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
In terms of justice, are you satisfied of the way everything's going right now? And do you plan the future will be better?
Loaded question. I would say no. I don't think any lawyer is, right? Like, that's why we become lawyers, because we see like something is wrong and we're like, no, I need to go in and change it. there have been changes made. And I know a lot of times we like to say, things are so grim, things are so dark, especially between 2016 2020 with that presidential administration. But we also have to give credit to the people who work really hard to make changes. You know, like, we have to look at the progress that has been made. Massachusetts has its ups and downs, but Massachusetts is one of the most progressive states in the, like, I think we have some of the best laws in the entire country. I
agree.
And I'm very biased, you know, I'm very biased because I live in Massachusetts. Let me take that back, because a lot of people will say Boston is racist. Boston is very racist. But Boston is racist. Boston is racist because of the Willie Lynch syndrome. That's why Boston is racist. So Boston is a melting pot. We have a lot of immigrants in Boston, and I'm a child of immigrants, first generation American myself, and a lot of immigrants want to be as close to white as possible. And what I have experienced living in Massachusetts, I experienced more racism and prejudice from other racial groups than I experienced from white people. What I experienced living in Massachusetts, what I experienced from white people is a lot of white guilt and a lot of trying to prove to me that they're not racist. Seriously, I do.
No, I'm laughing because, like, it's kind of true. It's true.
Right.
You know?
Right. What I do experience is being pushed down by other ethnicities, other races. Like, when I lived in Holyoke, so Holyoke has a huge Puerto Rican population. Most Puerto Rican people per capita outside of Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rican people in Holyoke were not very nice to me. They weren't mean to me per se, but they weren't very nice to me. They weren't very welcoming. The white people in Holyoke, however, super nice to me. Like, wanting to, like, be my friend, different things like that. In Boston, I grew up in Dorchester. Huge Cape Verdean population. They were so mean to me growing up. So mean to me. You know, we also have, like, a lot of stores. There's a lot of people that are Asian in Boston. Very mean to me. It's hard to say race, especially in this time where, you know, race is fluid. It's not so much what we think you should be, it's like what you identify as.
That's so true.
Right. So a huge thing I do when I meet people, I'll say, oh, do you consider yourself Black? You know, if I meet someone of brown, you know, and I think they're Black. Or I'll just be like, you know, oh, what's your race, your ethnicity, or whatever. You know, it just depends on how the conversation kind of flows or happening. Like, I might be saying, like, you know, me as a Black person, and then I might go like, oh, you know, do you consider yourself Black as well? And most of the time people, they'll laugh and they'll be like, of course I'm Black. What do you mean? Why are you asking me?
Yeah.
And it's like, and then it's awesome because it gives me an opportunity to kind of have, we can have a different dialogue about that, and we can kind of enlighten each other. And I tell them, you know, well, one, I don't want to make assumptions.
Exactly. You want to be respectful.
Right. And I'm like, especially for people who are darker skinned, but they don't identify as Black. So for example, like our Afro-Latino
Right.
brothers and sisters, you know, some of them don't consider themselves Black. Or you know, they may have darker skin and still not consider themselves like Afro-Latino. You know, like the world is so big.
Yes.
You know, and I remember there was a time I'm in lockup. This is when I was doing criminal defense. So I'm in lockup. It's rowdy, it's loud, and it already breaks my heart to see a bunch of Black and brown people in cages. And I remember there were like a row of like darker skinned men. They were kind of in the front, and I went to them and I said, you know, you guys gotta, I don't know if I said I don't remember the wording that I used, because I don't want to be, because I definitely was not like dismissive, like you guys shut the fuck. I know I didn't say that. I'm trying to remember what I said. But I basically said something to the extent of like, I don't want you all to act in a way. That's what I said. I said, I don't want you all to act in a way that gives them justification in their mind to say, this is why Black men belong in cages. And one of them responded to me, he said, I'm not Black, I'm Haitian. And in my 20s, I only hung out with Haitian people. Like I used to call myself Haitian by association. The Haitian people I know call themselves Black. But if this person, he says, I'm Haitian, I'm not Black, I respect that. 10 years ago, I probably would have been like, I would have been like, we're all Black, you know, I was on my high horse. You know what I mean? But like at that time, so that was like 2016. At that time, I was like, that's cool. I was like, no matter what you know, you don't identify as Black, but the powers that be
they're going to.
And just for this time when you're in lockup right now, I don't want them to treat you bad. I don't want them to abuse you. I don't want them, like, because this was 2016. So this was also the time when it was like every other week people were being killed in jails, in prisons. And I was like, I don't want them to make up in their mind a reason to kill you. So just for right now, like, I just need you to bring that in, you know, to kind of eliminate that idea from their mind. Like, this is why Black men belong in cages. Like, yeah.
That's crazy. So do you think the future is going to be better in terms of justice, the justice system?
Do I think the future will be better?
It's a tough question because you don't really know what the future is going to be like.
Because it's like, better for who, you know?
Exactly, you know?
Right, when we say better, because I could say something like, there's always plus and minuses to things. So like, let's say healthcare, for example, like when Obamacare was a big issue, and it was like, you know, this is great, this is going to create access to healthcare for all. But me, years later, 2021, I'm trying to start this business. I'm trying to get health insurance. These health insurance companies know that I need health insurance. So they can charge me whatever it is that they want to charge me. You know, I'm paying health insurance out of pocket. There was, you know, I'm paying like $300 a month for health insurance. And I'm just thinking about it like, yes, I need health insurance. I'm not going to say I don't need health insurance. But it just sucks because it's like, that's an additional $300 that's like being taken out of my business. Like I'm just thinking about all the other things that I like could do with that health insurance. Whereas like I would buy health insurance regardless. But if health insurance was not a law and the health insurance companies didn't know I need them more than they need me. Right. Maybe I would have gotten a better premium. You know, it's hard to like not think about it like that. So that's why it's always like, better for who? Like, there's always going to be a plus and minus, and that's why I said America hates the middle
or
class.
you could get married and you'll be fine.
Or I could get married, right? Or I could get married. Like, so what the benefits looking like?
Oh my goodness. But yeah, it is a hard question, because it's like, for who? Because if we, the future was better for Black people, then what about, the other races? And so
Right.
it's a hard question. I just wanted to see where your mind was at on that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing. I mean, it's always going to be plus and minuses, because, we're talking about, especially when we talk about taxes. Like, talking about taxes is like one of my favorite things to talk about. Like, it's hard. It's hard to be middle class in America because of the way, like, our tax structure is set up. And it's hard to get ahead. So, like, one of the reasons why I say, like, America hates the middle class is like I've been on food stamps twice in my life. Once when I was in college, and then once after college. And it was like, because I had a really hard time, like, finding that first job after college. And it was like, as soon as I got a job and I was probably making like $10, $11, $12 an hour, it was like, as soon as I had enough money to be able to afford heat and electricity, my food stamps got cut off. So, and I know a lot of times we talk about, like the welfare queen or whatever, the Section 8 queen, whatever.
Right.
But America makes it so hard to get legit.
That's so true.
It makes it so hard. And like, as an attorney, it's like, I feel like one of my life purposes is to help people get legit, like help get their businesses legit.
Yeah.
Like that's why I feel like I'm so happy that like this whole getting an LLC thing is so big right now. And like now we have like these community kitchens where like if you want to cook, but you're not in a financial position to open a restaurant, you have a place where you can at least sell your plates out of. I'm so thankful that we have that, because me as a past city attorney, if I find out you're selling plates out of your house, I have no other choice but to send the health department and shut you down.
Right.
Just for the health and safety of people buying plates from you. But like you said, it's like better for who? There's always plus and minuses to things. So I don't know. I don't know.
Wow. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I just have one last question, and it is, what is one, or if you have other lessons, what are some of the lessons that you've learned as far as being an attorney?
Wow. The biggest thing that being an attorney has taught me is that there's no such thing as common sense.
That's a good one.
There's no such thing as common sense. And I've been thinking about this for years, probably like 2 or 3 years. And like when I first started telling people, and because we're so conditioned to the idea that, everybody should have common sense, I have grown to resent the phrase common sense.
Yes, because everyone has different backgrounds. You don't know where people are coming from. Yes,
exactly. And like one of my friends goes, well, if the stove is hot, common sense says don't touch the stove. I'm not talking about survival instinct.
Right.
Obviously we're human beings. We have human physical bodies. Your survival instincts are gonna check in. But when it comes to social norms, I have grown to resent that phrase of like what someone should do, because it's like I'm punishing you because you didn't have the same experiences as me. And it's mean. It's mean to like try to penalize someone like that. And I think what we're trying to say is like, you don't have the same moral compass, or you don't have the same thought, like it's silly. It's really silly to say that to someone, because it's like, especially in America, this melting pot, people are from so many different places, and it's like the way people do it. Matter of fact, I'm gonna take a step back. Before we even talk about people from other countries, let's just talk about America. America is made up of so many different cultures. We got the Northeast. We do things one way in the Northeast. We got the South. We got
the West Coast.
We got Midwest.
They do all different things. Even the music is different.
Exactly.
So different.
Exactly.
The slang.
Everything is so different. So it's like, just a common example, if you get to a light and you're trying to cross the street, right? The way you cross the street in New York City is gonna be completely different. Like Trevor Noah has a joke where he's like crossing the street in New York City, and like the cars are speeding, and then they stop, and then the person stops and goes, "We have the light," and that means a lot. Like that walk sign means a lot in New York City. Whereas other places where the speed limit might be like, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, and people are used to like running lights, common sense there might say, no, I'm not gonna cross the street, even though I got the walk sign, I might still get hit. And that's just like that's something so small, but like when you multiply that times all of the different just things that happen in our day-to-day, like how we talk, how you greet someone, how you do it's we can go on and on all day about the differences. And just to say to someone, well, you don't have common sense because you don't do it the way that I do it, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy and kind of ignorant. Like, hold up, who you think you are saying that? That's crazy.
Right.
That's a good lesson. That's a really good one. I've never thought about that before. That's huge.
Thank you. Right, because and I learned that by being a lawyer, because like I was saying about the strategic litigation, where it's like you are strategizing your case around what seems like common sense to that jury. So like the way I may look at it as someone who lives in the Northeast, someone in the backwoods of Alabama might look at it differently.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like, and then the biggest thing that we say in the legal profession is reasonable minds will differ, not may differ. Reasonable minds will differ. We already have the assumption that reasonable minds will differ. And that's why we have appellate courts. It's like, that's why, and it's like, that's why I love the law, because you can look at things so differently ways.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
I should have got into law. No, I'm joking.
You should do it. Like I just said, I'm telling everybody, if you ever thought about being a lawyer, like now is the time to go. I mean, it's always a good time to go to law school, but I just think it's such, like, there's a shift going on in this country that we cannot ignore. Like you were saying about, do you think justice is better?
Right.
I think that the people, not the powers that be per se, because the powers that be are still white men.
Right.
But the people are changing.
And they're more aware.
Exactly. And I think more people are becoming aware of their rights, and more people are starting to advocate for themselves. And when more people are coming in to say, hey, that law you gave that white man 20 years ago and it worked in his favor, yeah, I want that law to work for me too. And it's like the powers that be have no other choice but to give it to you. And I think that's what's changing. I think that's what's getting better, like people becoming more and more aware. And I'm just thankful to be alive during this time period to help and assist in that. assist in that train of getting access to justice.
Yes, that's awesome. Oh, I forgot to mention, I know
Yeah.
we talked about this earlier, but you are a professor, right?
Oh, yes. So
You want to talk
I'm
about that? Just real quick.
absolutely, yes, absolutely. So adjunct professor at my alum law school, I was asked to help teach a writing class. It's called Legal Writing Analysis, and I loved it. And it's a class designed basically to help people become better legal writers. And I've always kind of thought about, like, maybe I'll become a professor one day, or I've always wanted to teach. Um, it was just an amazing experience because I learned differently. Like, I don't learn like the way that they say you're supposed to learn in traditional academic settings. And just to be able to bring my learning style into a classroom
It's
and like
amazing.
help people who learn like me, it is amazing. It's definitely amazing. I really hope to continue to teach in the future. Someone said to me, "You have the heart of a teacher," and I really
You
feel that way.
do. You do.
Oh,
That's the thing. It's like, wow. It's
thank
like that's
you.
like one of your purposes that you should be doing.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And I do. And I really want to teach people how to advocate for themselves and how to access the laws that they need to access. Like, when you ask me, like, what laws should everyone know? And it's like, oh, you should know whatever laws deal with your day to day. And a
Right.
lot of times when you experience something, you don't even know where to start. I want to help people at least even know where to start, especially when you're like, should I call an attorney? An attorney consultation is like $300 to $500.
Mm,
Like, and that's what happens a lot of times to people, is that they're in bad situations. An attorney can fix it, but it's like, do I pay this attorney $500 to fix it, or do I just pay the whatever to fix it? Like speeding tickets, for example.
mm,
So it's like you don't have you don't have enough money to pay an attorney, so then you pay these speeding tickets, and then you get a speeding ticket later on, and now your license is getting suspended because you
mm.
pled guilty in all those other speeding tickets. But had you had at least known what to say, before, even if you couldn't have gotten an attorney, maybe things would have turned out differently for you.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, great information. Thank you so much, Attorney Tash, for being
Thank you for
on
having me.
Lessons Learned. Wow. I learned so much from you, and I know you're a great teacher.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.